What's up, Dog Pound Nation? It's Jedrick Wills here. Super excited to get to work. Extremely excited I'm a Cleveland Brown and ready to be a part of that Cleveland Brown community. Go Browns.
A good look at the first pick for the Browns, 10th overall, Jedrick Wills. Welcome to More Sports and Less Levine. NFL Draft Recap along with the man the show's named after, Les Levine. I'm Dave Bacon. And Les, the Browns made their picks, traded back some, traded up some, just an overall reaction of what you saw.
Yeah, I thought basically with the new regime, head coach, new front office for the most part, Andrew Berry, they knew what they wanted to do and they did it. There's some questionable picks, maybe 3, 4, and 5, but let's celebrate 1 and 2 at this point.
And the other thing is it's going to be interesting to see, do they fit the scheme? They've talked a lot about scheme fit. It's good to hear that they're looking for specific players to fit what they want to do. I'm not sure that's always been the case.
And I think that when you ask people like us what the biggest needs are, they went after those needs. Whether it was the right player for those needs remains to be seen. But I thought that you don't want to grade it too early,
right.
But more pluses than minuses.
Yeah, and at least you can see the thinking behind most of it. Let's take a look at the guys the Browns acquired here. We've heard from Jedrick Wills, Grant Delpit, one of the top-ranked safeties, traded back, picked up a pick, got him. Jordan Elliott from Missouri, linebacker from LSU, Phillips, a little bit of a developmental guy. They get a tight end, a little undersized, who was really productive. The last two are very interesting picks. Nick Harris is a center. People compare him to a young Travis Kelce, not Jason,
right.
The center who they needed to develop and developed into a pretty good center. If they got a Kelce kind of center in the 5th round, that's a home run. And then they went a little twist on your thing. They went the best available Wolverine with Donovan Peoples-Jones, wide receiver, who was projected to be a 3rd or 4th round guy, but was injured.
And there were Ohio State wide receivers out there, untaken, and that might have been a surprise. But obviously, they're looking for what they feel is the best player, not necessarily a choice that the fans are going to fall in love with.
And Peoples-Jones, big target. 6'2", 212, really good punt returner, which was something we talked about last night that you wanted to see from a wide receiver. Gives them a bigger red zone target. Beckham and Landry are really good wide receivers. They're not bigger red zone targets.
No question about it. And 2 weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago, the Browns were searching for a tight end, hoping that Njoku was going to be the guy. Now it turns out they sign a guy and they draft a guy. Maybe Njoku's the odd man out.
And he might have some value on the trade market as well. A young guy that's raw with a lot of ability. Well, first virtual draft in NFL history, and also the first draft for Kevin Stefanski with Andrew Berry. Stefanski pretty happy with the way things went and was impressed with his new GM as well.
Really was pleased with how these last 3 days have gone. This is the culmination of a lot of hard work. So I'd first point out the work of our scouts, those road scouts. Wish I could have been with them this weekend, but this is definitely the fruits of their labor. So we went armed with a ton of information, and that's to their credit. And then the whole personnel group, the coaching staff, it takes a lot of people to put this thing together. So I think armed with all that information, I think we found some guys that we're excited to bring into our building. I think we got better on both sides of the ball. And I think we added some guys that we're looking forward to developing. I don't think any of us think any of the guys we've added are finished products. So that's the fun part in getting to work with them. And, obviously that'll start virtually and remotely, and then eventually that will turn into, being, hands-on with them, God willing, sooner than later. So pleased with how it went. You can never predict it, but I thought the plan was sound, and kudos to Andrew Berry and his crew. I don't know if it's some mystery, but I think Andrew and I see this thing very similarly. So when we're talking about this draft, we have some cultural non-negotiables, and then we have some schematic non-negotiables. And I think the coaches and scouts did a nice job of identifying the guys that fit those two things. And I think Andrew and I had some great discussion throughout the spring, throughout the last couple of days, along with our group on our call. So I think it was a collaborative effort, but I wouldn't call it anything surprising. I think we all knew the work that was put into this. We all knew kind of where we stood on a bunch of issues, and I think that's occurred from having conversations the last couple of months. Every game you go in with a game plan, and then you get hit with something, and you got to adapt. And you're out of an injury happens, so you got to adjust. And I think we went into this draft with a similar game plan and idea, and then I can tell you there were times where guys were on the board which we did not think they'd be there, or there were times where you're thinking of trading up and it didn't work, or you want to trade back and it didn't work. So I just think I was really impressed how Andrew was able to navigate these last 3 days, because it can be stressful, as you can all imagine. It was more stressful than game day, I told them, for me. But yeah, I think he did a great job, and I think he's built for this. I think he's got the right demeanor. He's got the right amount of intelligence. Couldn't get into pen, but again, not going to hold it against him. But really was very impressed with how he operated. He knew when to have everybody be very quiet, and he knew when to take in input. So he looked like a seasoned vet to me.
Kevin Stefanski, Browns' new head coach, Dave Bacon, along with Les Levine. And Les, it's kind of nice to hear some of the things that we've heard from the front office. Now, again, I know they haven't won a game. I know the proof is when you get on the field. But we have not heard guys
simpatico.
Yeah, I mean, there actually seems to be a vision.
Yeah, and I don't want to say they got lucky, because they obviously were prepared, and luck sometimes is the residue of preparedness. But they didn't have it. Sort of fell into their place. Now they might have had 3, 4, 5 scenarios as he suggested. But what happened, my guess is that's the best scenario they could have been. That they knew when they got down close to their pick, they knew they were going to get that tackle. They knew they were cocky enough to trade down a little bit on and still get Delpit. So I think that, not that they were lucky, but it fell into the way they were prepared to be.
Yeah, I think what it was, and they alluded to this, they were prepared for different scenarios.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, you can act accordingly. So all good signs. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of break, we'll hear from cleveland.com columnist Doug Lesmerises. We're talking NFL Browns. More sports and Les Levine. The NFL Draft Recap Show will be right back here on cleveland.com after this quick timeout.
Celebrate Naturestone's 30-year anniversary with a free Naturestone floor. During 2020, we will be giving away 30 free floors to 30 very lucky customers to say thank you for making Naturestone the best concrete flooring solution for garages, basements, and more. Call or visit Naturestone.com today to register to win, and we'll send you a copy of our new buyer's guide absolutely free. There's no purchase necessary. Winners will be chosen monthly. With over 30 million square feet installed for more than 60,000 customers, it's easy to see why I always say it's not just a floor. Wow, it's Naturestone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget, Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to More Sports and Les Levine special edition, the Draft Show 2020. Doug Lesmerises, cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. Hello, Doug. How you doing?
Hey, Les. How are you?
All right. All right. Your overall thoughts on what you saw over the last 3 days?
Yeah, good. I wrote this for cleveland.com for the morning. They really went in on the passing game, right? I mean, you could see how you get a left tackle to protect Baker Mayfield. They go tight end in the 4th round to give Baker another weapon. They go Grant Delpit, who I think is going to lock up in coverage a lot, even though he's a safety. It sounds like he'll play some slot corner. That's about stopping the passing game. They've really almost checked all the boxes now on this roster: cornerback, pass rusher, offensive tackle, receiver, and quarterback. You got to throw to win in the NFL. I know people love Nick Chubb. I know some people are worried about, do they have good enough linebackers? You got to throw to win. And I think the Browns, with the things they did in this draft and what they did in free agency and what they've done the past several drafts, have sort of finally locked down all the positions you need to throw it effectively and stop other teams from throwing it effectively.
Well, if we didn't think tight end was important to Kevin Stefanski, we know it is now.
Yeah, and again, and John Dorsey did this to some degree last draft. It didn't all necessarily work out. But, Hunter Bryant doesn't have to come in and play a gazillion snaps for them, not when you have Austin Hooper and David Njoku, but you don't know what Njoku's future is. I mean, I think everybody should hope that David Njoku has a huge season for the Browns, and then you have a good problem. But they need two good tight ends on this roster. I think they're going to view two tight ends as starters in a way. And so when you think about Njoku's future, if he's not going to be around, well, let's get somebody now so that maybe the future is, Hunter Bryant and is it Hunter Bryant or Harrison Bryant?
I believe it's Harrison Bryant.
There's two Bryants, and they have an H name, and I'm old. That's not on me. Take that out in editing. But yes, Kevin Stefanski wants tight ends, and so you get one in free agency and one in the draft, and you plan for not just next year, but the future.
Are you intrigued at all by Donovan Peoples-Jones? I know you likely saw him in the Big Ten. Guy that was banged up this year. Big frame, really talented return guy. What's your perception of? I know you've seen him play a couple of times.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued, and I told Donovan Peoples-Jones this. He didn't care. I mean, why would he? But I remember talking to him at an Ohio State recruiting camp when he was 15 years old. Ohio State was the first school that offered this kid. He was from Michigan, from a high school in Detroit that Ohio State had some success recruiting, and they were all over it. That great Ohio State 2017 recruiting class, Donovan Peoples-Jones would have been the cherry on top of that thing, and Urban Meyer went hard after him. And he wound up picking Michigan, and it didn't go great at Michigan. I mean, Michigan, he didn't have great quarterbacks to play with. They kind of monkeyed with their offensive scheme a couple times during his career. So the question with Donovan Peoples-Jones, and we asked the Browns about this a lot, is, okay, his production at Michigan didn't match the talent. Is that more about Michigan, or is that more about Donovan Peoples-Jones? But because if it's more about the situation at Michigan, then you might have ended up with the guy with second or third round talent in the sixth round, which is why it makes sense. If it turns out it's more about him maybe not putting it all together, well, sixth rounder, no big deal. But I do think this is an upside pick. This guy was the #1 receiver recruit in America 3 years ago. You don't draft guys based on high school recruiting rankings, but this guy is skilled, and maybe it'll hit in Cleveland.
Well, maybe somebody can tell him behind the scenes that, don't worry, if they don't like you, it's because you didn't play well. It has nothing to do with what school you went to.
Yeah, I mean, we went through this with Jabril Peppers. I know it's a thing. I mean, if he catches touchdown passes, nobody will care what color he wore in college. I know Browns fans sometimes get frustrated. They don't take enough Ohio State guys, and they didn't take any Ohio State guys. They did take a Michigan guy. But Ohio State wanted this guy. I mean, so you can pretend he's a Buckeye, because he really is a skilled guy if he can put it all together.
Who else intrigues you other than, obviously, Jedrick Wills? I know when we had talked a couple of times, Doug, you mentioned you wanted a tackle. You got a tackle. By some accounts, it's the top-ranked tackle. The Browns had him #1 on their board, and there were some other people that did as well. What are the other players intrigue you as well that the Browns drafted?
Yeah, I was really interested in a receiver hire. But I think the idea that Grant Delpit, he's a safety, but they like him because of his coverage skills. And so can he line up on a slot receiver? They got rid of T.J. Carey. Who's your slot corner? They signed Kevin Johnson. You don't know exactly 100% who your future slot corner is. if Delpit can cover slot receivers sometimes, if he can line up and cover tight ends, we know, the Ravens have some good tight ends. There's good tight ends in this division. I think he can fill a lot of gaps for them. So, obviously that's the first 2 picks, but, yes, he's a safety, but he really is a coverage guy in the modern NFL with how reliant teams have become on tight ends. So I think in the end that pick on a variety of levels, right? Not a great tackler, which is what we heard about Greedy Williams. But again, okay, if you can cover a guy, we'll forgive maybe some tackling issues because coverage is the name of the game.
Doug Lesmerises, cleveland.com, and the Plain Dealer. Doug, is there anybody that once you got past the second round into the third and fourth that the Browns made the pick, and as they make it, you're saying to yourself, how could they not pick so-and-so instead? Did anything jump out at you during rounds 3 and 4?
No, my ignorance is bliss in that situation. I don't know enough to complain about who they should have taken instead, So, I like upside picks, right? So it's like, let's roll the dice on guys a little bit. Nick Harris in the 5th round at center. I like the idea of, again, thinking down the road. Maybe you're thinking about, okay, we keep this guy for a couple of years. Maybe he can replace J.C. Tretter down the road. And in the meantime, maybe he gets in on the wide open right guard competition. So I just think there's some picks like that. That's a guy, you listen to the football people. He's a good lineman, but he needs to play in a certain kind of scheme. And it's the scheme that Kevin Stefanski wants to run. So I like the idea. The thing that I like in general, and again, we've sort of joked about this, they traded down a little bit. They got some value. They end up trading down with their 2nd round pick. They get Grant Delpit, who they would have taken anyway at the previous spot, and then they get the pick that leads to Nick Harris, who is going to be, hopefully at worst, a decent backup lineman for you. So it's about maximizing your value, and when you figure out, hey, if we slide back a few spots, we'll still get our guy and add a pick, I like it.
It seems that there was a plan in place. And the other thing that strikes me, and let me know if you I don't remember ever hearing the Browns talk about scheme fit on draft day. And that could be one of the reasons that, we've struggled so hard as a franchise to find guys that can play and do what you want them to do.
Yeah, and I asked Kevin Stefanski about that specifically after the Browns were done picking. And he also sort of wanted to push back, it felt like, and wanted to make the point of, we're not going to ignore a good player just because we're focused on scheme. But it's, he said it's their job. If we see a good player and we want him, then we've got to make him, sort of fit into the scheme we have. But we've said it since the day Kevin Stefanski was hired. And I feel like Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, and Paul DePodesta, while constantly talking about it, are maybe getting tired of talking about it. But scheme fit, alignment, I think the media in Cleveland is still baffled by cooperation. And we're just like, so you guys are working together and thinking the same things? And they're like, yeah, that's how you win. And we're like, we just haven't seen it before. So, yes, it continues.
You know what else we saw or heard more? We heard more of Paul DePodesta in the last couple of days than we've heard, I think, since he's been here.
Well, it's a ship.
And he's
right?
the guy in charge.
He doesn't have to worry about stepping on anybody's toes. Again, Andrew Berry, he brought Andrew Berry in. Paul DePodesta has things the way he would like them to be. And I think he has that because Jimmy Haslam said, I believe in you, Paul DePodesta. So that has allowed Paul DePodesta to go from a guy on the side to a guy in the middle of it. And I would expect that will continue going forward.
Doug Lesmerises, cleveland.com columnist, also Plain Dealer columnist. We appreciate the time and insight as always. Time for us to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of break, we'll hear from Stephen Means and talk Buckeyes in the draft, the 2020 NFL Draft Show. More sports and less Levine special NFL Draft Edition. We'll be right back after this timeout.
You love it, always wanted it, and there's never been a better time to get Nature Stone than during our Spring Weather Breaker sale. We're breaking spring sales records with up to half off beautiful Nature Stone garage floors, patios, porches, and more. Correct cracked, uneven concrete that thin paints and poly coatings can't. Every Weather Breaker savings comes with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty, and there are no hidden maintenance costs. Schedule online today at naturestone.com to qualify for up to half off. Hurry, offer ends April 30th. It's not just a floor. Wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget, Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Welcome back to More Sports and Les Levine, the 2020 NFL Draft Recap Show, along with Les Levine, the man the show is named after. I'm Dave Bacon, and we're going to shift gears a little bit. Let's talk one of your favorite subjects, Buckeyes in the NFL Draft. 9 of them taken this year by various teams, 3 of them in the first round, and the DBU continues. 2 cornerbacks taken in the first 19 picks. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it is. I was kind of surprised KJ Hill lasted as long as he did. I thought Benjamin Victor might have been taken, but 9 in a draft is pretty impressive.
Well, the other one is J.K. Dobbins going to the Ravens. I think that's a great situation for him. He's different than Mark Ingram. He's different than the running backs they have. And, oh, by the way, defenses have to worry about Lamar Jackson running the football, too, which it's great for the Ravens, not so good for our Browns.
Who play them twice a year.
Right, every year. Anybody else that stands out on that group?
No, I think that's although Arnett, I thought, went early.
Yeah.
But that's the only question that I would have.
Yeah, and the flip side of that is they're drafting, the skill, the coaching that he's getting. Now Ohio State defensive backs mean something in NFL circles because of the success they've had. Well, when we talk Ohio State, we're going to welcome in Stephen Means, Buckeyes beat reporter here on cleveland.com. Stephen, appreciate the time and the insight as always. What jumps out to you about the 9 Buckeyes that were taken in this year's NFL draft?
Yeah, KJ Hill especially, I thought he'd be maybe a 5th or 6th round guy just because he's not the best athlete. He's smaller, he's kind of slow, but he's got reliable hands. Brian Hartline often said last season that KJ Hill has the best hands of anybody on Ohio State's team, and he showed that. He's been the leading reception getter for the last couple of years here. He's Ohio State's all-time leader in receptions. He broke that record last season. But then you remember, this is a deep wide receiver draft, and so while you maybe have thought, okay, he could work his way up into the 5th round, I think the lack of a pro day, that extra stuff that comes with preparing for the NFL draft that wasn't available to him, when you're in a class that's this deep with wide receivers, there's a chance he's going to fall. And that's what we saw. And so you saw all across Twitter, why hasn't KJ Hill been taken? Well, those are the reasons. He's not the best athlete. This is a deep class.
Who are some of the guys that are a little under the radar, in the middle of that group that you think could really pop in the NFL?
Davon Hamilton, for sure, a 5th-year senior who really broke out in his first year as a starter. Obviously, we know what Chase Young did, but he was one of the other inside guys that really had a breakout season, and the teachings of Larry Johnson live on. And you saw I think he went earlier in the draft than I thought he would, going in the 3rd round there. So he's the guy I would look at as staying 5 years and waiting to be a starter for 5 years and learning from Larry Johnson. He's going to be able to come in right away and help a team. So he's the main of those middle of the pack guys who aren't the obvious. They're going to be a Pro Bowler one day. I think he's the guy to keep an eye on.
None of them seem to get hurt by the coaching change, or am I missing something here?
Oh, within the defensive backs? No, of course not, because that is with Damon Arnett, Jordan Fuller, and with Jeff Okuda, especially with Jeff Okuda, that's talent. He was going to be a first-round cornerback no matter what happened there. With Damon Arnett coming back the 5th year, obviously Jeff Hafley helped as a guy who had just come from the NFL coaching a guy like Richard Sherman. But Damon Arnett also learned under, Kerry Combs before he left. And so with those guys, no, they don't get hurt by the defensive back coach changes because, well, unlike Alex Grinch, Jeff Hafley knew what he was doing as a defensive backs coach. So, no, I'm not surprised that, Jeffrey, especially with Jeffrey Okuda, I'm not surprised that he was still a top 10 pick. That was going to be a top 10 pick if I was his assistant coach for the last 3 years.
You've seen a number of really good defensive backs play for Ohio State. Where does Okuda rank in that hierarchy? You've got Lattimore and Ward here, and there's a number of them in the NFL. Where's Jeffrey Okuda ranked talent-wise?
He's Marshawn Lattimore and him might be neck and neck, especially when you look at Marshawn. I think the difference is Marshawn Lattimore popped out of nowhere because he was injured most of his Ohio State career, and so until you knew it was there, you just needed a chance for him to get on the field and show it. And he spent that 1 year showing it, and now he's one of the best defensive backs in the NFL. Jeffrey Okuda is on that same trajectory. He had the Denzel Ward plan at Ohio State where you play a little bit as a freshman, you rotate as a sophomore, and then you're the guy as a junior. But I think he's going to have a Marshawn Lattimore type impact, especially with the Detroit Lions after they got rid of Darius Slay. He's their number one corner, so he's going to get action every single Sunday for 16 weeks. And I think he could be a Pro Bowler as early as next season. So Marshawn Lattimore, it's probably Jeffrey Okuda and Marshawn Lattimore are 1A and 1B.
The other thing that we have to point out, Ohio State with the 3 first-rounders now has historically more first-round picks than any other, program, which that's a feather in the cap. And they just passed USC, who was good back in the 80s and 90s. And other than that, there's a wide gap.
And it's probably not going to stop anytime soon, especially when you look at what Larry Johnson is doing in the defensive line room. Kerry Combs is back in the defensive back room, and he's racking up recruits as if, he's racking up recruits the way that some people breathe 4 or 5-star guys there. That's not going to stop. They're going to continue to produce defensive backs in the first round. They're going to continue to produce defensive linemen in the first round. Justin Fields is probably going to be the 1st or 2nd pick next year in the draft. And Ryan Day's got a 5-star kid coming in after that. I think the quarterbacks might sneak into there as first-round guys. That gap's going to continue to get widened, especially since we see what's going on with USC right now. They're just a complete mess.
If you were another team, especially in the Big Ten, you say, okay, they got 9 guys who won't be there next year. It could be time for us to do something. But they just, as you say, they just reload. Any position that looks like it might be a problem, that they don't have somebody just to pop and play?
Yeah, as much as we just raved about the defensive backs, outside of Shaun Wade, there's nobody else that's proven. Now, Tyree Johnson was a 5-star kid in the 2018 Class 7. Banks showed some things last year, and Cam Brown showed some things last year as well. But it's a lot of young guys who haven't proven anything, and that's mainly because when you got Jeff Okuda, Damon Arnett, and Jordan Fuller, and Shaun Wade, those guys are not coming off the field, so they didn't rotate as much. So there are maybe more questions and answers outside of Shaun Wade, who Mel Kiper said is going to be a high draft pick next year, and I believe him. There are questions there because those guys just haven't proven anything. But still, that's high-level talent, and Kerry Combs is their coach. The track record kind of speaks for itself. You expect some greatness to come out of there.
Stephen Means, Ohio State beat reporter here for cleveland.com, the Plain Dealer. Appreciate the time and the insight as well.
Thanks, Steve.
Let's final thought as we put a wrap on this NFL draft recap show. You walk away. If I told you coming into the draft, they're going to get Jedrick Wills, Grant Delpit. They're going to get some developmental guys. They're going to get a wide receiver that, some people projected him to go 3rd, 4th round. He fell to the 6th. I
think as I stated at the beginning of the show, maybe your 3rd or 4th round pick could have had somebody more playing ready. But I like the 1 and 2 pick. It fell the way they wanted it to. I don't think they could have scripted it better than that. And if 3, 4, and 5, if they can get 1 or 2 players out of that, it's been a great weekend.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I really like the fact that we're starting to hear we are taking guys that fit what we want to do on offense and defense. That's what really good franchises and really good teams
and
do.
And if the head coach can stay a while, that just continues on year in and year out, and you don't have to get rid of the other guys and get your own.
And the thing you have to remember, the reason that this works, that I think you have to do scheme, none of these players are perfect. They all have certain things they do well and certain things they don't do well. And when you find a scheme that you play, that's why the 49ers have been successful. That's why the Ravens, that's why the Steelers are successful. They know what weaknesses they can hide in their scheme. Yeah. And the Browns need to get to that point.
And by the way, for those who don't know, Trent Williams goes to the 49ers. Joe Staley retires, but I thought after last night, the way it fell, I thought that Williams was going to be stuck with the Redskins.
He ends up with the 49ers, so Super Bowl runners-up, if you will. Well, that'll do it for this edition of More Sports and Less Levine, the NFL Draft Special. We appreciate you checking us out. Want to remind you, Les will be back in the chair Monday night, 6 to 7. Tom Withers, AP writer, plugged in with the Browns as well. It should be an interesting time.
It's not news until Tom Withers says it's news.
For Les Levine, I'm Dave Bacon. Have a great weekend, and Les will see you again Monday night.
You got it.